And now, from the IBA at Winchester, engineering announcements for the radio and television trade.
Hello and welcome to another roundup of news and information for the radio and television trade. Low power transmitters to feed television signals around the home are becoming a practical possibility. We comment on the implications. We report on annual proceedings at both Bremer and Retra, and there's the usual summary of transmitter news, including new relays at Woodcombe, Porthglass, Bodham and Mickleham.
There have been articles in the retail trade press recently about a new low-power home television transmitter, which raises a number of issues, not all of them technical. Paul Copel asked Pat Falker if this could really replace cables.
Well, yes, the sort of idea seems to be to have a cordless VCR or cordless distribution system in your home using the radio waves rather than sending them along cable. But of course, as the trade press have rightly pointed out, this is entirely illegal and immediately suggests that people are running their own transmitters.
Could this be the equipment that possibly community television stations might want to use if the government decides to set them up?
Well, we've had community radio being suggested, but all I can say is that looking at the specification that they put out, one would certainly could hardly assume that any responsible licensing authority would in fact license such stations, because the sort of frequency stability, the fact that they don't transmit a vestigial sideband but only a double sideband system, makes one extraordinarily doubtful whether such a system would be acceptable to anyone.
And it means presumably they could interfere with other people's equipment.
Well, this is basically the problem, of course. They infringe the Wireless Telegraphy Acts if they connect such a transmitter, even if it's only a few milliwatts output. If they connect it to an aerial, then it immediately becomes a transmitter. And of course, the problem at the moment is that although the new Telecommunications Act, which amended the Wireless Telegraphy Act, has provisions for making the manufacture of equipment of this sort of thing illegal, in fact it is not the case at the moment. It is illegal at the moment to use such equipment, and if you do use it, it can be seized by the authorities and held as evidence to be brought in a court case.
This sounds, I must say, Pat, a little bit like the professional people trying to make sure that their monopoly isn't undermined. I mean, don't you see any sort of market or possibility for these low-power transmitters?
Well, one can see a market, for instance, perhaps on board ships sailing outside the territorial limits. Certainly there would be nothing to stop it being used in that way, but all I would hate to see is yet another potential abuse of the radio spectrum getting itself accepted and in use in this country. The idea that the radio spectrum is up for grabs, and if enough people use it in some illegal fashion, then the authorities are forced to make that legal, seems to me to be a hopeless abuse of regulation.
Thank you, Pat. Now some trade news. The Radio and Electronic Manufacturers Association, Bremer, held its annual general meeting last Thursday, and with it came the 1984 annual report on the industry. In it, the president of Bremer, Lord Thornycroft, thought 84 was a year best forgotten, and in which most manufacturers and many dealers saw little profit. However, with low inflation, a continuing consumer boom, and increased exports, he thought we could only hope for better things in 1985. Also in the Bremer 1984 report, Bernard Rogers, chairman of their technical committee, was optimistic about the transmission format for satellite broadcasting.
The MAC system, he emphasised, is now defined by a family of specifications all having an identical coding structure. There is also a range of modulation methods making it universally applicable, not only to the requirements of direct broadcasting, but also to distribution by cable. It may thus be confidently predicted, he said, that the development of the basic MAC system will be seen as one of the most important milestones in broadcasting technology, comparable to the development of the basic principles in the 1950s and 60s that gave rise to the enormous success of colour television.
And we'll be looking at that MAC family in a few weeks' time as part of our series on DBS. Last week also saw the 1985 Retro Conference, this year at Bournemouth. Carry on trading was the theme, and among the forecasts made by various speakers, a 2% increase in overall consumer spending, but can the trade maintain its share? 25% of retailing could be by electronic means by the 1990s. The initial price of a 60cm dish plus electronics for DBS could be about £340, and the next consumer boom might be miniature video cassette recorders. And for those who like nostalgic cost comparisons, take heart that in 1970, a 22-inch colour television cost 10 times the average weekly wage, and in 1984 it cost only double.
Dealers in London, central southern England and northwest England will already be aware that we've been radiating one extra teletext data line to assess any effects on old receivers. The tests have shown that 7 lines per field now cause virtually no trouble, and we've now been given the go-ahead to use that number as the normal service. It will probably be later this year before 7 lines are used in the rest of the country.
Transmitter news now, starting with the continuing development of the Channel 4 network. Now on the air, Haywards Heath in West Sussex on Channel 41, Millbrook in Southampton on 47, and Sedbergh a little ahead of schedule on Channel 50. Due this week, Buxton in Derbyshire, where the new channel on 31 will be to the benefit of about 23,000 people. Also due this week, Belper on Channel 62 for about 4,000. Expected next week, Loch Stoke on Channel 29, covering about 24,000 people in Stratford-on-Avon and the Vale of Evesham. And also Hythe in Kent, Channel 31 for about 3,500.
Special announcements next, and in East Anglia, all channels on Sudbury were scheduled off this morning between 11 and 12 for aerial checks. The Pontypridd relay in South Wales will be off for 2 days of this week, depending on the weather, between 6 AM and midday. This is for aerial maintenance.
Still in South Wales, the Kilvey Hill relay was scheduled off today between 6 AM and midday. Again, this is for aerial maintenance and is weather dependent. The interruption also affects Kilvrue, Craigkevin Park, Britain Ferry, Bury Port and Evelvach.
In the northwest of England, Urswick was due for an interruption between 9 and 10 this morning for electricity board maintenance.
Tomorrow, the Milburn Muir relay in central Scotland is due off from 9 AM until 4:30 PM. Again, this is for work by the electricity board.
Also tomorrow, Glen Gorm on the island of Mull and Cow Hill at Fort William will both be off from 6 AM for aerial work. The interruption will also affect Mallaig, Castle Bay and Spearn Bridge.
On Thursday, the Hannington main station will be off on all channels between 9:30 and 10:30 in the morning. This is for aerial checks.
Also on Thursday morning, Festiniog will be off between 9:30 and 12:30 for work on the electricity supply.
And on Friday, Tackleston and Dependence will be off between 11 AM and about midday for mast and aerial checks.
New relays now, starting in Somerset, where Woodcombe, on the outskirts of Minehead, is due to open later this week. The relay is intended for about 600 people living mainly in the Woodcombe Valley and in parts of the Parks Estate, Minehead. HTV West and TV-AM will be on Channel 24, with Channel 4 on 31. Aerials will have to be Group A, vertically polarised. That's Woodcombe, expected on the air this week.
Near Ruthin in North Wales, the Pwllglaus relay is due to start transmissions in a week or two. It's specifically designed to serve about 270 people in Porthcloss itself and the rural area for about a mile to the southwest of the village. HTV Wales and TVAM will be on Channel 23 and S4C on Channel 29. Vertically polarised Group A aerials will be needed here. Porthcloss, just south of Ruthin in Clwyd, is due on the air in a week or two.
Near Peterhead in the Grampian region of Scotland, Bodham is also nearing completion. The relay is intended to cover most of the village, amounting to 1,100 people previously unserved. Regional ITV from Grampian Television will be on Channel 42, with Channel 4 to be on 49. Aerials will be Group B types, vertically polarised. Bodham is due on the air in a week or two.
Near Leatherhead in Surrey, Mickleham is also due at about the same time. This is for just over 1,000 people living in the low-lying area south of Leatherhead, as far as the northern outskirts of Dorking, including Mickleham itself and most of West Humble. London ITV will be on Channel 58, with Channel 4 on 68, so it's Group CD aerials with the elements vertical. That's Mickleham in Surrey, due in a week or two.
We conclude, as usual, with our address for technical queries on independent broadcasting. The telephone number is Winchester 0962 822 444. Join us again next Tuesday at 9:15 or 12:15 for more engineering announcements. Until then, from Murray Nicholson and from me, John Lovell, goodbye for now.